Good afternoon. For any of you who don't know me, I'm Warren Goodell. I'm Executive Director of Kelly Center for Hunger Relief. I started here 4.5 years ago and have been working hard to turn what was a food pantry into a more holistic approach to hunger relief in El Paso. It's been a whole focus. Our pantry has grown and grown. We had a we went from 2,500 distributions a month to 22,000 distributions a month when COVID started. And we had to totally rework everything we did to cope and to make that work. At the same time, our FreshStart program, which was really beginning to blossom, had challenges of going from in-person, hi, how are you? Let me tell me how I can help, to hello, are you there? Hello, hello. Trying to do things virtually. I want to give recognition to the Paso Donate Health Foundation for their support of Fresh Start over the years. Thank you very much. It's been an important experiment. We started out as trying to take a concept called More Than Food, developed out of the East Coast, and bring it here to Kelly and look at how we can better serve the people of El Paso in moving lives from dependence to self-sufficiency. It's really an economic development program more than a social service program. And in all the time of trying to build that program, the question I've been asking myself is, how do I know whether it's working? How do I know if it's changing lives? I mean, we can measure how many people go to classes and how many people do this and how many people do that, but that doesn't really tell you, is it making a difference? Is it changing anything? So we've got staff and we've got interns back here. We've got supporters. We've got youth have representation from our intern side. And thank you for all the interns. They make a huge difference. And from our research side, I have been trying to position Kelly at UTEP as a living laboratory, place where professors who want to explore different kinds of questions can come and talk to people and work with the clients that we serve. The Fresh Start program has grown from about 25 clients a year when I first started to now we're serving 325 clients every year. We are looking to expand this year into the colonias, specifically San Elizario, Frayden, and San Antonio. And we're in the process of partnering with IUTA to make that happen and to bring our services to a wider and very needy part of El Paso. So that's the context of what's going on. We're fortunate to have Jason Melanie as a member of our board of directors. And in particular, this year, he's our chair. He's also a research social worker at UTEP, formerly at New Mexico State University, which is where we first met him. I was really excited that I'd have a professor from New Mexico State University on my board to go along with Dr. Moya from UTEP, and then he moved to UTEP. So now I have two professors. But awesome. He's made possible through his work and work with his students to interview and talk with Fresh Start alumni. You get a much better picture, and he's going to present that research today. So thank you all for coming. Please help yourself to food. Don't hesitate to get up and grab something to munch on. And these wonderful little Fresh Start stress relievers are sitting there waiting for you to come and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. So thank you again, and back to Melanie. Thank you. Yes, appreciate it. Yes.
So I'm going to be doing some juggling with technology. Let me just make sure this is on there. Okay, so we have some participants joining us on Zoom, and my graduate research assistant Rosa Escalante is joining us on Zoom. And she was supposed to be here in person, but is unable to. But I'm so grateful that she was able to hop on Zoom today because we really wanted this to be a bilingual presentation. And so she'll be hopping on, and you'll be hearing her through this OWL machine as we go through this presentation. As Warren mentioned, I'm chairing the board of directors for the Kelly Center for Hunger Relief. So that makes me, have two roles with the agency. And what that means in terms of research is that I'm not involved in obtaining informed consent. I'm not involved in collecting data. I'm not involved in recruiting. And so I owe a big thank you to Rosa. She does most of that for me, and all of the staff and interns here who do the recruiting. So that's how we kind of keep those roles separate. But we're here today to talk to you about a mixed method study that we conducted. Really where we're looking at, statistically, how are we making a difference? How is FreshStart making a difference? Then also really trying to tell the story of FreshStart. And for me, qualitative research, conducting interviews and reviewing pages and pages and pages of transcripts is very time consuming, but it's always moving for me. And so I'm really excited to use the data and, our interviews to tell the story of FreshStart. Rosa, do you want to say?
Of course. Muy buenas tardes, muchas gracias por estar aquí el día de hoy. Si oyen mi voz un poquito ronca, me disculpo de antemano, estoy un poquito enferma, pero eso no impide que esté el día de hoy con ustedes. Estamos el día de hoy haciendo esta presentación donde vamos a presentarles lo que vimos durante las entrevistas. Como lo mencionó mi jefe, el Dr. Maloney, él no estaba involucrado, él no hizo nada, ninguna de las entrevistas con los participantes, principalmente fui yo, y creo que es lo bonito y lo importante de las entrevistas individuales fue verdaderamente captar la historia de los participantes y los beneficios que tuvieron cuando estaban en el programa Fresh Start. Nos ayudó a tener una imagen más clara de qué es lo que hace el programa Fresh Start por esta comunidad.
So I mute and unmute our mic when she's speaking, so the people online don't get the reverb, the feedback, just so you know. So I have some people that I'd like to acknowledge in terms of making this research possible. And in terms of making the program possible, the Paso de Muerte Foundation, I should have you up there as well, because we've really supported this program over the years and its growth. And I'm excited to share with you all like some of the things that we're finding. But first and foremost, the Fresh Start members who've been willing to engage with us in conversations, the Fresh Start staff and interns who have worked really hard recruiting for our study here, and help us organize what that looked like. They had a big role in this research, and none of this would have been possible without the members of Fresh Start being willing to have conversations with us. I also want to thank Oak Ridge Associated Universities. Through the National Library of Medicine, they've provided funding to support this particular research project. We have some links to some of the resources on our information sheet, and at the end of the presentation. Also, the Hunt Institute for Global Competitiveness. Like I said, I'm more of a qualitative researcher, so I needed help with the quantitative stuff. And two of their really fabulous analysts did separate analysis of the data set, and came up with the same findings, even using two different software systems. So we can really say that the data that we found is valid. We couldn't have done the quantitative portion without their support. They also designed the flyer with all of our findings. So hopefully will help inform people of the program. I also want to thank Katie Martin and the More Than Food Framework. That's really what Fresh Start is based off of, and Katie has consulted throughout this research project. We've been talking about what data to collect, how to look at it. And so I want to acknowledge her. And as I mentioned earlier, I couldn't do any of this without my graduate research assistant. I call her mine because she's never going to work with anyone else. So we're looking forward to her transitioning, fingers crossed, into the PhD program this coming fall, and we can continue working together. And again, as I mentioned, and my apologies for not including it, the Paso Domerzo Foundation for funding the Fresh Start program.
Y antes de comenzar con lo que descubrimos durante las entrevistas individuales, a mi jefe le gustaría agradecer en particular, por supuesto, al Paso del Norte Health Foundation, también al staff de los participantes y a los estudiantes que han estado, que forman parte del programa Fresh Start. Verdaderamente sin su ayuda no podríamos haber logrado estas entrevistas. Fueron de muchísima y de valiosa ayuda para nosotros. A la Universidad Asociada de Oak Ridge y la Biblioteca Nacional de Medicina de Estados Unidos. Y doy gracias que el Instituto Hunt de la Convertibilidad Global estaba aquí para hacer los números y las estadísticas, porque no soy tan mala, pero se agradece siempre tener esa perspectiva diferente a uno personalmente. También queremos agradecer a Katie Martin y a y el marco de alimentos que ella es verdaderamente en lo que está basado el programa Fresh Start. Ella es quien empezó de todo esto. Y a mi jefe le gustaría agradecerle a su asistente de investigación, pero eso es mi jefe, no yo.
Okay, before we really get into some of the data, I want to first just capture kind of what Fresh Start graduates feel about the program, how they feel about the program. And so you're going to hear a lot of their words tonight, because I think they're the most important words. And I'm just going to read these two quotes. The first one, these came from, we interviewed 21 Fresh Start graduates, and one of them said, "The way they treat you as if you were part of their family. Who is not going to feel at ease when they are given love, that they are given protection, that they are given food? Well, what else do you want?" So, I mean, this really captures, I think, what Fresh Start is trying to do. And for me, it was just so moving to see our graduates really have this feeling. Another graduate described it as a second chance. You get to push yourself too, but at the same time, they help you. They give you the little push. You got to do your part. I do my part, and that was what I needed to just basically move forward. So this really captures that it's a partnership, right? Fresh Start staff and interns, they're not doing the work for the members. They're doing it with members. And what you'll find is that, you know, they can take that out into their own lives after they graduate and break down any barriers that they may face.
A continuación tenemos unas citas de diferentes participantes que verdaderamente nos ayudaron a tener un poquito más de claridad de qué se trata el programa Fresh Start. Uno de los participantes lo describió como la forma en la que te tratan, como si fueras parte de su familia, que no se va a sentir a gusto cuando le dan amor, que le dan protección, que le dan comida. Pues, ¿qué más quieres? Y otro participante mencionó que para él era una segunda oportunidad para ti, pero tú también te esfuerzas, pero al mismo tiempo ellos también te ayudan, te dan el empujoncito. Tienes que hacer de tu parte. Yo hago mi parte y eso es lo que necesitaba, seguir adelante básicamente. Ellos platicaban acerca de cómo es muy importante cómo trabajan el staff del programa Fresh Start junto con ellos en equipo. No nada más lo ponen todo directamente en el staff o directamente en el participante, sino que es una convivencia y trabajan juntos. Recuerdo que un participante me dijo que casi lo agarraban a uno de la mano para caminar y encontrar su camino.
So then we thought we'd show you just a little bit about what Fresh Start looks like. So when we talk about, you know, more than food and tackling the root causes of hunger, you know, we're really looking at a person holistically, right? What are all the areas in their lives that we can help them achieve goals in, so that they can feel empowered and they can access the resources they need. And in these particular pictures, you'll see an English class on the left side and a Zumba class on the right. Almost all of our participants talked about the Zumba classes and how just being able to connect with people. It was a motivator to come in. One person even said, I came into the Zumba class and I figured while I was here, I would stay for the nutrition class. So just a couple pictures to demonstrate that.
A continuación tenemos un par de fotografías. Queríamos enseñarles verdaderamente cómo se ve el programa FreshStart y cómo se ven algunos de los participantes. En la fotografía del lado izquierdo vemos a algunos participantes en una clase de inglés, aunque verdaderamente la más popular era la clase de Zumba. Creo que la mayoría de mis participantes habló acerca de la clase de Zumba, aman la clase de Zumba y muchos de ellos empezaron por eso y siguieron quedándose a ellos. El programa FreshStart no solo se enfoca en darles ese alimento que su cuerpo tal vez necesita, pero también en todos los aspectos de su vida, ayudarlos a seguir adelante.
Just another picture from one of the classes here. And then a quote from one of the people we interviewed. That person said, they helped me to focus a lot on my life goal. They helped me to have a clear mind because if I was too stressed with financial issues and thus I could not eat, concentrate, see the clarity or see the solution to my problem. And it helped me a lot. So really, just hearing FreshStart graduates reflect upon their experience. This is really how they're leaving the program, what they're getting from it.
Y aquí tenemos otra fotografía también de otros participantes en el programa FreshStart. Y este participante dijo, me ayudan a enfocarme mucho en mi meta de vida. Me ayudaron a tener la mente clara porque si estaba demasiado estresado con temas financieros y así, no podía comer, concentrarme, ver la claridad o ver la solución a mi problema y me ayudó mucho. Y esto nos enseña a nosotros como investigadores que esto es lo que se están llevando los participantes al terminar el programa FreshStart. Y así seguir con su día después de terminar el programa.
So now we're going to just start talking a little bit about who is the person who's participating in FreshStart? Who are the people who are participating in FreshStart? We looked at specifically a data set, 254 participants who had complete surveys, or had at least one complete survey in this particular analysis. And so these range from 2019 to 2022, it was really kind of captured during the pandemic as well, like what the impacts were. And one of the things we found is that about 80% of the people who participate in FreshStart are female. And which really kind of shows us that the women are often the ones sourcing food for their families and engaging in programs like this to help reduce those barriers to self-sufficiency. We also saw that FreshStart primarily serves Hispanic and Latino families, about 90%, although this directly reflects the regional demographics. This just kind of gives us a little sense of who we're serving.
En esta diapositiva ahora vamos a platicar un poquito acerca de cómo se ven los participantes en el programa FreshStart. Y en este caso, desde el 2019 al 2022, ha habido un total de 254 participantes del programa FreshStart. La mayoría de ellos, el 81% de ellos son mujeres, lo cual nos hace asumir que la mayoría de las mujeres son las que obtienen los alimentos para sus familias y nada más el 18% eran hombres. En cuestión de etnicidad, la mayoría, el programa FreshStart sirve a la mayoría principalmente a hispanos o latinos, familias hispanas o latinas. Pero esto refleja los datos demográficos del área en la que vivimos. Y eso es un poquito de lo que los participantes que sirve el programa FreshStart.
So one of the things that we found is that the households of people participating in Fresh Start, they vary quite a bit. If you look at this, household size, at least 75% have more than one person. 20% have 5 people or more. If you look at the number of children in the household, almost 80% are children under 5. That was the question asked on the Crucial survey. You can see 80% did not, but 20% have children under 5. So really, this shows you that there isn't one particular person who's coming in and receiving services through Fresh Start. It's really a diverse set of family compositions and ages that Fresh Start is serving.
Ahora vamos a hablar acerca aproximadamente de el tamaño de las viviendas donde viven los participantes del programa Fresh Start. El 75% de los participantes cuentan con más de una persona que vive con ellos. Y nada más un 20% tiene niños menores de 5 años viviendo con ellos. Pero casi el 80% de estos participantes no tienen niños menores de 5 años en su hogar.
In terms of employment status, we found that over half of the people who participated in Fresh Start were fully unemployed. Some had short-term unemployment, and then there was some part-time employment. And so one of the things we hope to see was some gains in employment. But the majority of people served in Fresh Start are unemployed. And only 3% have full-time jobs that have actual benefits. So we can again start to see that these are the underlying causes for food insecurity, right? And these are the areas that Fresh Start tackles.
Ahora en cuestiones del estado de empleo que tenían los participantes en el programa Fresh Start, nosotros esperamos ver un poco más de ganancias en ese sentido o en ese aspecto, ya que actualmente el 67% de los participantes nos han hecho saber que están realmente sin un trabajo, ya sea de medio tiempo o tiempo completo, y solamente el 3% de los participantes en un trabajo completo, que es muy importante resaltar que nada más el 3% tiene un trabajo con beneficios. El 7% de ellos tienen un trabajo de tiempo completo, pero no tienen beneficios.
We also looked at housing status because we know that housing security and food security are very, very much tied together. And if we look at this, what we found is that fewer than half of participants had what we would consider stable housing. So that means that 7% were home free, 7% were in transitional housing, 11% were under threat of eviction, and for 28%, their mortgage or rent payment exceeded 50% of all income coming in. So when people are in that situation, they're having to make choices between paying their rent and purchasing food. And so that's also something that we try to tackle with Fresh Start.
Ahora vamos a platicar un poquito acerca del estado de la vivienda de los participantes. En estas encuestas pudimos ver que el 47% de los participantes tienen una vivienda estable. El 7% son gente que no tiene una casa o un hogar. El otro 7% son participantes que viven en una vivienda de transición. El 11% tienen una amenaza de desalojo o están en posibilidades de que los desalojen. Y el 28% paga una hipoteca, paga una renta, pero se le va un poquito más de la mitad de los ingresos que reciben. Y esto es lo que nos han platicado los participantes. A veces se ven en la dificultad entre decidir si pagar renta o pagar o comprar comida o qué tipo de comida pueden comprar para pagar su renta y tener un lugar estable para vivir.
Okay, so now let's look at some of the impacts that Fresh Start is having. And just to give you a little information about where this data is coming from. So of those 254, we pulled out a subset of 67 who graduated from Fresh Start, meaning they completed the entire program. And if you think about it, you know, I'm a social worker first, and I understand that working with populations that are having a difficult time meeting their basic needs, often something else rises to the top priority, and they have a more difficult time staying engaged with programs long term. This also recognizes that a lot of people come into Fresh Start and they have one or two things that they need to work on. And so they work on those, accomplish those goals, and don't go the entire 9 months. So this is people who have gone the entire 9 months in Fresh Start, a subset of 67 of them. So what we found for those 67, and then we've tried to supplement with some of the quotes from our interviews. We interviewed, like I mentioned, 21 Fresh Start graduates. So what we found is that their weekly use of the food bank went from 71% to 38%. So what this is really showing us is that their dependence on using crisis like food services, like a food pantry or food bank, are significantly decreasing. And on the flip side, what we're seeing is that the use of SNAP benefits is increasing. So that went from 58% to 76%. So what that really is telling us is that a program like Fresh Start that's tackling food insecurity for people who are in desperate need of food, it is helping them get on more long-term assistance programs that are going to help their families stay sufficient or self-sufficient going forward. So our goal at the Kelly Center is for no one to need a food pantry, right? And so these findings are supportive of that impact of Fresh Start. And so just one quote, it was a lot of help that I had in those months when I didn't have a job. The support offered me other resources if I needed it, or they could refer me to other places. So really getting people connected, getting them set up in social programs that are intended to have more of a consistent impact on the households.
Ahora vamos a platicar un poquito acerca del impacto que está teniendo el programa Fresh Start. Para estos números que les vamos a presentar a continuación, de las 254 entre 254 encuestas que se llenaron, elegimos 67 de ellas, porque son 67 participantes que concluyeron el programa Fresh Start, que se graduaron del programa, que tomaron todas sus sesiones y tomaron el programa de principio a fin. Y obviamente sabemos que la meta del programa Fresh Start es que necesiten cada vez menos el recurso de la comida del programa Fresh Start, el banco de comida o venir al food pantry. Vemos que en la primera sesión el 71.43% de participantes usaba un banco de comida cada semana. Para la sesión 3 había disminuido hasta el 38.78%. Eso nos enseña una reducción significativa del banco de comida, del uso del banco de comida o lo que dependían de ello. Y al mismo tiempo lo relacionamos con referirlos con ayudas más a largo plazo y no algo tan temporal como el beneficio de SNAP. En la primera sesión, el 58% de los participantes estaban usando, tenían acceso o usaban SNAP benefits. Y para la sesión número 3 había incrementado al 78.47%. Una de las citas de los participantes de las entrevistas que tuvimos fue que nos ayuda a poner esto en contexto. Él nos mencionó, fue mucha la ayuda la que tuve en estos meses que no tenía trabajo. El soporte me ofreció otros recursos si los necesitaba o me podían referir a otros lugares.
We also found in a similar vein that more people were getting connected with you know, state or federally funded medical health insurance or health insurance programs through local centers to help you know, help support their physical health. I know I was here at the center once when someone came in and was having like a dental emergency and just didn't have access to the resources, and the Patricia grabbed her and got her sat down and started working with her. But what we found is that for the graduates of the program, 9% of them had insurance, had state funded insurance, government health insurance at the beginning of the program, and that increased to 27% at the end. And just a couple of quotes. They helped me to get the health care because I was seeking for medical attention, and they helped me get performant UMC. So I got that health care discount card. And this person talked about how much that reduced the cost for their expenses every time they needed to go into UMC. Someone else said, I got my social security going instead of being fighting every month or every other month. So just really providing those services, navigating systems that FreshStart does, you know, it's clearly having an impact.
Y para continuar en la misma línea también, queríamos ver qué tanto se les había conectado a los participantes con alguna ayuda de aseguranza, principalmente financiada por el Estado. Al principio de las sesiones, los participantes que terminaron el programa, el 9% de ellos tenían algún tipo de aseguranza financiada por el Estado. Y para la sesión número 3, el 27% había sido conectado o referido o sea, le habían dado el programa FreshStart, el Estado del programa FreshStart le había dado seguimiento para conectarlos a esta ayuda. Y algunas citas que mencionaron los participantes fueron las siguientes. Me ayudaron a obtener atención médica porque estaba buscando atención médica y luego me ayudaron a obtener el formulario en UNC. Así que obtuve esa tarjeta de descuento de atención médica. Y otro de ellos mencionó que obtuvo su seguro social, lo pudo hacer funcionar, ya que esta persona mencionaba que a veces cada mes tenía que pelear o cada 2 meses tenía que pelear con la oficina del seguro social.
So when we were looking at the employment statistics, what we found is that the rate of people unemployed in FreshStart when they started the program for these 67, the rate was 54%. And that rate of unemployment at the end of the program was 44%. So we are seeing some reduction. I think employment is one of the more challenging areas to focus on in social services. But we saw an increase in part-time employment, which probably explains a lot of the decrease in unemployment. So 29% were part-time employed at the start of the program, and that went up to almost 39% when they graduated the program. And just another quote to, like I said, we want to tell the story of FreshStart through their words. So someone reflected upon getting a job. In a way, I was able to achieve it because as I was trying to apply for jobs or trying to get my ID to apply for jobs, I realized I needed my social security card. And that was a whole journey and a mess until I achieved it. I completed that goal. So I think that really captures like getting a job is a lot more than just going and filling out an application, right? It's making sure you have everything in order.
Y con eso también vamos a pasar a la parte de platicar un poquito acerca del desempleo. Queríamos mover más participantes del programa FreshStart a la fuerza laboral y vemos que para el principio de las sesiones el 54% nos informaba que no tenían un trabajo, y para la sesión número 3 el 44% habían lentamente empezado a buscar un trabajo. Muchos de ellos habían conseguido un trabajo. También lo vemos con trabajos de medio tiempo, Para la primera sesión, el 29% tenía trabajo de medio tiempo, y para la sesión número 3, el 38% había conseguido un trabajo de medio tiempo. Y creemos que la siguiente cita verdaderamente nos dice o nos da una imagen más clara de qué tan difícil es conseguir un trabajo como a veces la comunidad o la gente piensa. No es tan sencillo como ir a aplicar, sino que hay varios pasos que a veces los participantes tienen que cumplir, y es todo un proceso. Y este participante mencionó que para él conseguir un trabajo de la manera en la que pude lograrlo, porque mientras intentaba solicitar empleos o tratar de obtener mi identificación para solicitar empleos, me di cuenta que necesitaba una tarjeta de seguro social. Y eso fue todo un viaje y un desorden hasta lograrlo. He cumplido ese objetivo.
So this just gives you a sense of when people complete the program, when they go through the 9 months, these are some of the gains that we're seeing. Oops. Just one last, no, there's a couple more areas here, sorry. We also saw a decrease in homelessness or people being home free. If you look at it, 3% of the people of the 294 were considered home free when they started the program. And that went down, or I'm sorry, for the 67 who completed the program, 3% were home free. And that went down, that was cut in half, roughly to about 1.5%. And, you know, anyone who's worked in housing security knows that it can be challenging to find stable, secure housing. And so cutting that in half for the smaller group of the 67 who are going through is a great impact. And just captured in one participant's words, they helped me with housing. I got into housing. They helped me put in the application and get everything going. I finally got approved for housing within a year. I have been on the housing list for 9 years, but I've never been accepted. So this is someone who, for 9 years, they've been trying to get into housing, subsidized housing, and was able to during their time working in FreshStart.
También vemos que el programa FreshStart ha ayudado a disminuir el número de personas que actualmente no tienen una casa o un hogar. En la primera sesión nos reportaron que el 3% de personas no tenían una casa o una casa estable, no pagaban renta ni nada. Para la sesión número 3 vimos una baja hasta un 1.56%. Y creo que la cita que más embona toda esta ayuda gracias al programa FreshStart es esta participante que nos compartió. Dice, me ayudaron con la vivienda. Entré en vivienda, me ayudaron a presentar la solicitud y a poner todo en marcha. Finalmente obtuve la aprobación para vivienda en menos de un año. Llevo 9 años en la lista de espera y nunca me habían aceptado.
So another finding that we found interesting is that, you know, when people are assessed in FreshStart at the beginning, at kind of the midway point and at the end, they're asked to rate their goals and their needs. What are their priorities? And one of the areas they can choose are really priorities related to what we call psychosocial and environmental factors. So maybe mental health and things like that. And those ratings as a priority went up from 29% at the beginning of the program to 53% when they graduated from the program. Really kind of leading us to conclude that once we're getting some basic needs met, we can start, they can start working on some of the other things that they're going to need in their life. And so another quote, I would tell them, this is what I want to accomplish. That would really make me focus and, concentrate on what needed to be done with my best of self. Like today, I'm going to accomplish this and I will go and do it. And if it takes time to get onto there, I go through the bad stuff and the hurdles.
También los participantes platicaban acerca de cómo enfocarse a cosas que a otras necesidades que ellos tenían que fueran un poquito menos apremiantes o que tuvieran un poquito, podrían dedicarse gracias a que tenían algo más estable, seguro, como comida o viviendas, como son, preocuparse en cosas que los afecten en su ambiente, en el entorno que los rodea, tal vez como salud mental, entre otras cosas. Y una de las citas que dijo uno de los participantes de las entrevistas fue, les diría que esto es lo que quiero lograr, eso realmente me haría concentrarme y ya sabes, concentrarme en lo que necesitaba hacer para dar lo mejor de mí mismo. Como hoy voy a lograr esto y lo voy a hacer. Y si me toma tiempo llegar a eso, pasar por las cosas malas y los obstáculos.
So for the 67 graduates that we looked at in this study, one of the things I talked about before is people having to make a choice between paying their rent and buying food. In the survey that they complete, and ask them if they've had to make the choice between paying for food or paying for rent, or paying for utilities, or purchasing medications, right? We don't want people to be having to make these choices. We found at the beginning of the program that 40% were having to make that choice. And at the end of the program, that was down to 27, a little over 27%. Making the choice between buying food and paying for utilities, we were 45 to 30%. And it's the same with the choice of having to choose between food and medication. So what we're finding is that for people who graduate Fresh Start, they're less often having, or less of the, fewer of the graduates are having to make these tough decisions.
Cuando los participantes del programa FreshStart concluyen y toman sus sesiones en el programa FreshStart, claro que queremos que los participantes no se encuentren en una intercruzada, que es tener que elegir entre pagar comida o pagar a lo mejor su renta, su hipoteca. Y vemos una disminución en este aspecto para los participantes que han concluido el programa FreshStart. Al principio del programa, el 40% de los participantes reportaba que se encontraban tenían que tomar la decisión entre pagar por renta o su hipoteca o comida. Y al concluir el programa, el 27%, disminuyó hasta un 27% de ellos en que todavía se encontraban a veces en esas situaciones. También a la hora de pagar servicios o comida, el 45% al principio del programa se encontraba en esa disyuntiva de tener que elegir pagar sus servicios de sus casas o comprar comida. Y al concluir el programa había disminuido hasta el 30%. Y lo mismo para la hora de comprar medicamentos.
So I hope in that section, we just kind of showed you with the data, some of the impacts that the Fresh Start program are having. And now we're going to, we're going to look more at the qualitative data. So like I mentioned before, I'm really interested to hear what Fresh Start graduates have to say about the program. And so Rosa conducted 21 interviews in this room here with Fresh Start graduates. She transcribed all of the interviews and she translated all of the interviews. And then she and I took those 80 pages of transcripts. We did independent thematic analysis or looking for common themes. And then we came together and agreed upon the themes that we would codify. So why does Fresh Start work? It's interesting if you look at the graduates of the program, you might think that they would say, because it provided me the resources that I needed. But that really wasn't what was permeating those conversations. And through this section of the presentation, each slide will be followed with the words of the participants. But if you look at it, providing experiences for learning and growth, fostering relationships in a sense of mattering. And a lot of that is on the Fresh Start, the culture of the Fresh Start staff and interns. I mean, people really feel like they matter when you're walking through this door. So these were really how people characterize Fresh Start.
Ahora vamos a platicar un poquito acerca de las entrevistas, un poquito más a fondo en la parte cualitativa de la investigación. Fueron Tuve el honor y el placer de conducir 21 entrevistas con participantes graduados del programa FreshStart. En base a lo que recabamos, son graduandos desde el 2018 hasta el 2022. Y a la hora de platicar con ellos y preguntarles acerca de las características del programa FreshStart, yo llegué con una idea muy pequeña de qué era el programa FreshStart, que al final como facilitadora de las entrevistas me ayudó muchísimo. Ellos al platicar conmigo se enfocaron en varias cosas, pero mayormente y principalmente decían que una de las características del programa FreshStart eran las experiencias, el aprendizaje y el crecimiento. Hablaban muy bien y recuerdan muchos de ellos con mucho cariño al staff del programa Kelly, al todo el personal del Kelly Food Pantry Memorial, y hablan de las cualidades de la cultura y el personal. Ah, lo que les, lo que hace, lo que hace funcionar el programa Fresh Start también es fomentar las relaciones y el sentido de importancia entre los participantes, pero también entre el mismo staff. Y también algunos de ellos mencionaron lo mucho que el staff les ayuda y les proporciona recursos necesarios afuera en la comunidad o dentro de la misma organización.
So just putting this in, putting this in their own words through the interviews. One participant said, it was like they gave me their hand to get out of the hole where I was and get up again, hearing that it was a start to life again. And I say, well, here we go. Another participant said, what you do as speakers who make us feel very good and open a door so that we are perceptive, that we receive the teachings with pleasure, not with monotony, not with obligation, because that does not work. So I was so amazed. Another participant said, the people who take care of me are all very kind and give me the attention you need. If you want to talk to them, if you need something, they are there for you. There's always someone who can help you.
Y algunas de las citas de los comentarios que nos dijeron los participantes fueron los siguientes. Uno de ellos mencionó, fue como si me dieran la mano para salir del hoyo donde estaba y levantarme de nuevo. Al escuchar que era un recomenzar a la vida, y digo, bueno, allá vamos. Lo que hacen ustedes como personas que nos hacen sentir muy bien y abren una puerta para que seamos perceptivos, que recibamos las enseñanzas con gusto, no con monotonía, no con obligación, porque eso no funciona. Entonces yo estaba asombrado. Y para terminar, otro de ellos mencionó, las personas que me atendieron son todas muy amables y te brindan la atención que necesitas. Si quieres hablar con ellos, necesitas algo, están ahí para ti. Siempre hay alguien que te puede ayudar.
So we asked participants who graduated from Fresh Start, what were their most memorable gains? What were the things that they felt like they got out of Fresh Start? And if you look at this, a lot of people felt that they improved their English and increased their likelihood of pathway to citizenship, increased motivation and goal setting. So again, these are things that can transfer once they graduate from the program. A lot of them achieve their individualized goals, whether they were around employment, education, financial goals, or some other case management goals. Improved nutritional and physical health knowledges and practices, and improved overall wellness and self-care practices.
Cuando les preguntábamos a los participantes qué habían obtenido después de concluir su tiempo en el programa Fresh Start, muchos de ellos hablaban acerca de cómo mejoraron en su inglés y abrió una nueva puerta a poder comunicarse con gente en su entorno, con su familia, con vecinos. Los ayudó a estar en camino a obtener una ciudadanía o un estatus migratorio en este país. Otros hablaron acerca de logros en metas que ellos tenían personalmente, individuales a lo mejor en educación, en trabajos o algunas otras áreas que ellos quisieran trabajar. Y otros de ellos hablaron acerca de cómo cuidarse ellos mismos, de cuidarse primero a ellos mismos antes de tratar de cuidar a los demás y cómo tener un bienestar general. También algunos de ellos hablaron acerca de que se sentían con una mayor motivación y tenían más conocimiento para hacer metas y objetivos después del programa y enfocarse en ellos. Y también, por último, algunos de ellos mencionaron que tenían más conocimientos en cuestión de nutrición o de salud física y se sentían más motivados a cuidar su salud y a seguir cuidándose a ellos mismos.
So in the words of the graduates, this is really what captured it. On a personal level, I think I got more confident because I'm usually outspoken, but going through some stuff will diminish that. Another participant said, for me, my life and my thoughts improved. This made me stronger to see that they are supporting us and that we can, and we must have that same character to help later. It was amazing how much the FreshStart graduates talked about the pride in coming back to volunteer. While they were in the program, but also after they graduated. Another participant said, I did learn more correct ways of eating, cooking, and it's serving a little more balance. Well, you have to eat fruits, vegetables, protein. Well, the plate was more balanced. And someone said it helps with like setting the goals to actually look into if I wanted to do something or not. It just helps me to actually want to do something instead of just at home depressed.
Y para ejemplificar un poco de lo que platicamos en la diapositiva anterior, tenemos estas citas de algunos de los participantes. Uno de ellos mencionaba que a nivel personal cree que le ayudó a tener más confianza porque generalmente dice soy franco, pero pasar por algunas cosas disminuiría eso. Otro mencionaba, para mí, mi vida y mis pensamientos mejoraron. Esto me hizo más fuerte, ver que nos están apoyando y que podemos y debemos tener ese mismo carácter para ayudar después. Otro de los participantes nos comentó que aprendió formas más correctas de comer, cocinar y ser un poco más balanceado. Bueno, hay que comer frutas, verduras, proteínas. Bueno, el plato estaba más balanceado. Y por último, uno de ellos mencionó, me ayudó a establecer metas para ver si quería hacer algo o no. Simplemente me ayuda a querer hacer algo en lugar de solo estar deprimido en casa.
So we asked people, if they were able to maintain their gains after they graduated from FreshStart and what helped them maintain their gains. And for some participants, it was really the confidence and the motivation that they received here. And people felt like even if they had graduated the program, if they were hitting a roadblock and something came up, they could come in and just talk to someone and get some help. People talked about remembering what they were learning here, writing it down, practicing it, and then actively participating in the programs there and really being part of the culture of the Kelly Center.
Y les platicábamos les preguntábamos a los participantes qué consideraban ellos mantener, que les ayuda a ellos mantener todo lo bueno que obtuvieron del programa FreshStart. Y muchos de ellos mencionaron que era la confianza y la motivación y el apoyo continuo que le dan gente del staff y la gente que los rodea mientras están en el programa, sus compañeros, sus maestros, el staff del Kelly Food Pantry Memorial. Otros de ellos mencionaban que era recordar, repasar y practicar habilidades. Mencionaban ellos que se sentaban y leían las hojas que se les habían dado en las clases y eso les ayudaba a tener toda esa información fresca en su memoria. Y por último, algunos de ellos mencionaban la participación activa en el programa y la cultura de la organización de la agencia.
And so in the words of Fresh Start graduates, one participant said, here they give you confidence and they make you trust yourself again. and they give you confidence and they make you feel that everything is possible. And you are not alone more than anything. Because many times moral support is very important. Another participant or graduate said, I actually wrote down what I needed, or what I need to get them. And that was like a reminder for me, and go ahead. And sometimes I'm successful on it. I'm mostly successful in what I got to do. And then someone just mentioned that the exercises and the coexistence that took place in the groups is what helped them maintain their gains.
Y en palabras de los participantes, thank you, Dr. Nam. Ellos mencionaban, decían, aquí te dan confianza y te hacen volver a confiar en ti mismo. Y te dan confianza y te hacen sentir que todo es posible y que no estás solo. Más que nada porque muchas veces el apoyo moral es muy importante. Otros de ellos mencionaban, en realidad escribir lo que necesito obtenerlos y eso fue como un recordatorio para mí y seguir adelante. A veces tengo éxito en eso, soy mayormente exitoso en lo que tengo que hacer de esta manera. Y otro de ellos decía que todos los ejercicios y la convivencia que se dio con sus compañeros en el grupo.
Okay, so we also asked what were some of the challenges they faced maintaining the gains that they had gained in FreshStart. Many of them, about a quarter of them felt like they didn't face any challenges. They were able to really maintain the gains. A larger percentage of them cited personal challenges in their lives or competing demands. Often, spending 9 months in a program, it's going to help you tackle some things, but there are still other things that are going to come up in line. Others mentioned needing additional learning practice. They talked about using some of the YouTube resources that were provided and the handouts that were provided to practice at home. And just a couple mentioned environmental challenges. So things going on in the world, if we think of, inflation, the price of food, things like that.
Y también les preguntábamos a los participantes qué retos habían encontrado ellos durante el programa o después de graduarse del programa para seguir con todo lo bueno que habían obtenido en el programa. Y muchos de ellos mencionaron que los principales retos que ellos encontraban eran personales o demandas muy competitivas. Otros mencionaron que ellos no tenían ningún reto, que no habían enfrentado ningún reto. Otros decían que necesitaban práctica y aprendizaje adicional. Querían un poquito más de ejercicios, más práctica, para reavanzar los conocimientos que adquirieron. Y algunos de ellos mencionaron los retos ambientales, que son factores externos que les impiden, que no están en su control.
And so in their own words, one participant said there are personal challenges. For example, last year I had the death of my mother. So things that are going to have those challenges for any of us. One person said, I just take it day by day. I just go straight ahead and I do not even look back. I do not want to look back at problems I've had in the past, so I'd rather go forward. Someone said, well, I feel that I still need to continue attending classes. And someone said, this is one thing that I haven't graduated from 10 days. The truth is, I've seen it. It's been very difficult for me to eat because everything is very expensive. So we're talking about this time frame where food costs are going up, all costs are going up. And during these interviews, people were just having honest conversations about what their lives were like after graduating FreshStart.
Y algunos de las pláticas con los participantes que verdaderamente son un ejemplo de lo mencionado anterior uno de ellos mencionaba son retos personales. Por ejemplo, el año pasado tuve la muerte de mi madre. Otro mencionaba, simplemente lo tomo día a día. Sigo recto y ni siquiera miro atrás. No quiero mirar atrás a los problemas que he tenido en el pasado, así que prefiero seguir adelante. Y otro nos comentaba, bueno, siento que todavía necesito seguir asistiendo a las clases. Y para concluir, uno nos mencionaba, esto es una cosa que no me había graduado de las despensas. La verdad, yo lo he visto, me ha costado mucho comer porque todo está muy caro.
So we just wanted to end the presentation really with a couple of quotes that stood out to us, outside, they're part of the other analysis. But someone said, then a relationship was forged with my companions. And without knowing what I was going through, they helped me a lot and supported each other a lot. So people learned in this program, in the FreshStart program, not only to get support from the staff and the interns, but also to get support from each other. And if you've walked in here when a class is going on, you can tell that connections are being made and that relationships are being formed. And those are going to be natural supports for people when they graduate from the program. Someone else said, I hope that these types of programs never end because they help many people. I was participating, and I think that that is what the community needs more, to have more places to go to ask for information, to ask for help with anything, even for the information.
Y algunas ideas para concluir, creo que son dos de las citas que más nos impactaron durante las entrevistas, o al menos voy a hablar por mí misma, y fueron una de las conversaciones más enriquecedoras que tuve con los participantes. Uno de ellos me mencionaba: entonces se forjó una relación con mis compañeros que, sin saber por lo que estaba pasando, me ayudaron mucho y se apoyaban mucho. Es muy bonito ver cómo tienen tanto cariño y amor no nada más por el staff del Kelly Food Pantry Memorial, pero también por los estudiantes y cómo les ayudan. Pero el encontrarse con compañeros que tal vez están atravesando algo muy similar a ellos, les ha dado una esperanza, y muchos de ellos mencionaron que todavía son amigos aún después de terminar el programa y siguen en contacto unos con otros. Y otra de las citas que nos llamó la atención fue: espero que este tipo de programas nunca terminen porque ayudan a muchas personas. Estuve participando y creo que eso es lo que más necesita la comunidad para tener más lugares a donde ir a pedir información, para pedir ayuda en cualquier cosa, incluso hasta para pedir información.
So one of the things we mentioned in the beginning is our partnership with Oak Ridge Associated Universities and the National Library of Medicine to fund some of this study. These are some QR codes to link to National Library of Medicine resources. They're also on, we've created, well, with the help of the Hunt Institute, created a flyer that basically walks you through all the findings that we just talked about. Our goal is for the findings of this research to not stay in university, not be stuck in a journal that no one's reading. But we really want this information to get out. So we have a lot of these flyers. We have English on one side and Spanish on the other, and it includes the link to these resources.
Aquí vemos algunos QR codes en cual pueden encontrar recomendaciones de alimentos, nutrición y actividad física. También vienen en el volante que estoy segura que mi jefe les dio, es donde viene toda la información que estamos presentando en colaboración con el Hunt Institute. Y lo que él quiere, lo que mi jefe quiere, es que esta información no se quede en un libro, en el librero de alguna biblioteca o de alguna escuela, sino que esté afuera de la comunidad, disponible para todo quien quiera aprender y quiera saber de esto.
Any questions, comments? We can open it up for a conversation now.
Thank you, Jason, Dr. Melanie, Dr. Moya, all the doctors in the house. Thank you so much. I think, as I've been reflecting on both this presentation and my experience with Fresh Start, one truth comes out stronger than anything else, and that's that working with people is messy. It's not neat. It doesn't fall into checklists and into one size fits all in anything. You can have 10 people coming with the same goal and needing 15 different approaches to achieve those goals. It's messy. In addition to the benefit to the participants, we are really focused on making our program a benefit to the interns that work with us. We're really looking for how do we train social workers in our community that are going to go out and deal with these issues in different formats. So coming out of this program, we're hoping that there's a really strong basis of knowledge and understanding of what they're getting into when they go out to work in the real world. Although I think Fresh Start comes as close to real world as you can possibly imagine. I did want to point out one other thing, and that's that he focused on a lot of this on people who had completed 9 months. So they've taken a pre, mid, and a post survey. That's probably a fourth of the clients, give or take. So you've got a big proportion that came in. I need my social security card so I can go to work. We get to help them get their card. They go to work. They leave the program. For us, it's a success, but they don't complete the mid or the post. And then we have people who come in and they go through the pre and they get a couple weeks or months in and it's like, I'm not ready to deal with this, and they're gone. And we often will see them come back a year later or 2 years later, say, I'm ready now. But that figures into the percentages of what you see here. We are, we just point that this research will be out on is out on our website. We have a research tab, Research Institute tab on our website. And we are partnering with Dr. Schober, whose happy face is smiling at you up there, and the food bank with other partners in a food equity program to look at research. The research that Greg has just finished and will be released, I think, May, something like that, is looking at the root causes of poverty or poverty, hunger, whatever, in our community. And it's the first time that we can find that there's been a study done that really takes a look at the El Paso community rather than just the formulas and the census data that doesn't really relate in many ways to this particular population. So we're really excited about that. And hopefully next year we'll do a follow-on, which will be what is hunger cost our community? What are the various costs of being hungry, and what does that impact on your family and your health, long-term health? And so putting all this together, it starts to make sense in terms of informing us on how we approach the issues of hunger, food insecurity, and poverty in El Paso. So Jason, thank you again for all this work. I really appreciate it. And I hope you'll stay and have some questions. So
Yeah, we have a couple of questions online. So someone's asking, how do you recruit new members?
new members. Okay, so we opened a clothes closet in August. So now we got people coming off the street because they hear they can get clothes either for interviews or just to stay warm or whatever. And while they're here, it's like, oh, you have a Fresh Start program? Let me explore that. So we go out on the pantry and we make sure people in the pantry know that the Fresh Start program is available. But a lot of it's word of mouth. It's like this person, okay, so going back a step, Fresh Start to be successful needs to focus on self-efficacy. Because if a person isn't ready to take chances, they're not gonna change their lives at all. So getting that, and how do you do that? You do that through social capital and human capital. And that's kind of our programming, is trying to provide that. The Zumba class was great, and social capital. You saw that in your results. So it really is word of mouth is a big piece of how people come to us. And then we do first you have to be aware that there's help available before you're ready to take advantage of it. So that's what we're trying to do, is spread the word that help is available and get that space in the person's mind opened up to possibilities.
And just to answer a couple of questions online, and Katie Martin answered one of them. This is based on a framework that's evidence-based. There are many studies published. And you can look up the More Than Food framework, or More Than Food Consulting. That's Katie Martin's company at this point. And yeah, it's, the way that we're looking at it in terms of sustainability is it's always going to be a program that we raise money for, that we raise grants for. And that's one of the reasons we're trying to demonstrate the impact that it's having. In terms of long-term success, we're in conversations with how to revise some data collection processes so we can, have those follow-ups at 12 months or 15 months. And so those are some things as the program grows and becomes more, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. It becomes more rigorous in how we're measuring outcomes. I think we'll be able to look at the longer term successes. But from the 21 interviews with people who graduated, and they graduated from 2018 to 2022, so there really was a range. Everyone talked about how the difference that it made in their lives and that they were able to maintain those gains. Another question, cost per member. As Warren was mentioning, people come into this program, sometimes they're here for a week, sometimes they're here for 6 weeks, sometimes they're here for the 9 months. When we were looking at the data, we were looking at really those who are here for the full 9 months. So it's not really possible to measure cost per member because it varies on how frequent or how long people are in the program. Like Warren said, I mean, over 300 people have been served by the program in the past year. But that doesn't mean that everyone goes through the entire 9 months or needs the entire.
Over the years, it's been pretty consistently $1,500 per person to go through the program or to participate in the program to some extent. That's been pretty standard since I came. We have reduced the cost a lot. We used to look at it in cost per week per client. We got down to about $29, $28. We started at about 80, I think. So the ability to get a better bang for the buck depends largely on how many interns we can have and supervise. So the more interns, the more leverage there is on the dollar. So that's one reason, but only one reason that we look for interns. We're working primarily with UTEP, both masters and undergraduate, but we also have relationships with 12 other universities at this point, bringing in students who happen to live here in El Paso and they're studying on their own.
Yeah, and Gerald, yeah, the More Than Food framework is really rooted in kind of motivational interviewing as a way to help move people along the continuum of readiness to change and make these changes in their lives. Any questions or comments here? Yeah.
So I'm just curious, probably off the top of your head, do you remember anything about the Zumba data, like what people were saying about Zumba? Because movement and dance and the community building, I think, is a really important part of the program.
I think, what we saw a lot is people, and we're going to present some recommendations to the FreshStart staff that more Zumba, more Zumba,
more cowbell,
more Tai Chi, more yoga, more meditation. Like these are some of the things that people are recommending.
Because those services can be really expensive, in the community.
We frequently rely on volunteers, right? Coming in to provide those.
We're doing Zumba 3 times a week, and the classes were full. The gym was full of people. We even had Representative Escobar out here Zumbing with us one day, which was kind of fun. COVID hit, and I couldn't justify having Zumba inside. So after a while, we tried it outside, but it got too hot, it got too cold. We're in the process of trying to find ways to regenerate that program on a much stronger basis. Because part of any physical exercise is what they call endorphins,
The mental health,
the mental health aspect of it, the self-efficacy that comes out of successfully going through a Zumba class with friends and just, it's funny how what looks like a real little thing sometimes can be the most important thing in changing someone's life. But the thing that makes it so messy is that you can't change someone's life for them. And you can't get them in the program unless they're ready to at least consider that. But they have to do it. They have to do that. And everybody's got different motivations and different triggers and different buttons. And that's why this is so messy. And I so appreciate the staff and the interns that have brought empathy, patience, skills, and perseverance to their work with their clients. It's really, I think they follow that. They're trying to get through to some the different people at different times of their lives.
Yeah, we had one participant say, if you walk in the door and you need a meal, they will have you open whenever. Just being able to be treated with dignity and respect is so important.
So I have a comment, not a question, but I was sitting here reflecting on my years of being a practitioner out in the community, working with difficult families, right? And I remember you were talking a lot about it gives support, right? And I do believe that success in life, we have to have a good support system. And a lot of times the families that I dealt with didn't have that. And that's why they were where they were at. And I sat here thinking, oh, if I had had an agency like this one to refer my clients to, right, they would have found that, because a lot of times all we had back then, it's been a while, all we had back then was churches, right? We wanted to, if we wanted support for a client, you would refer them to a church, which they weren't ready for at that time, a lot of things. And so this would have been a great resource for me. So I'm hoping that our interns are taking it back to our seminar classes and telling other students, listen, we have this resource here in El Paso, let's use it.
That's one of our goals in the internship program, is to generate a generation of practitioners who are aware of the support that people need and where to find it. Kelly is trying very hard to be a collaborative agency rather than a competitive agency. So we're trying to work with all the different agencies in town to take advantage of their particular strengths and really expand the client's network into the community in ways that are needed.
Well, you all have done a fabulous job. I remember starting here and all you had was Brenda and another individual and my one intern. And so,
So I changed the settings of people, because I had security settings on since the link was public on Facebook. I've seen some bombing happen yesterday in a meeting. And so if anyone wants to speak or turn your camera on, I forgot to turn that security feature off.
Hey, Katie.
Hi, Warren. It's probably good that I wasn't on video and off mute, because I was like sitting here in Connecticut crying, and I'm so thrilled. And hey, Jerry, I'm like just so proud and thrilled for all the work that you guys are doing and the differences that you are making for individuals in El Paso. So I remember coming to visit in 2015, and then I was privileged to come for the first graduation ceremony, and I'm so happy to see this work continuing.
Thank you, Katie. Katie and Jerry were instrumental in getting this off the ground, working with the Paso del Norte Health Foundation.
Katie was invaluable and guided us through all the startup. And if any of you haven't read her book, you need to grab it and read it.
That's reinventing food vendors. Yeah, we have a couple copies.
so Jason and Rosa, this is really important work. I'm sitting here. So what is keeping us at UTEP from having a FreshStart component? So that, for example, our university students who have access, I know they come all the way here. So they're coming to you, but imagine having a component of this nature on campus, where we could make it so readily available for our students to not only be advised, be connected with the groups that we have, but also look at other comprehensive needs. So this is so valuable. So Jason, Dr. Melanie, and Rosa, I think your work with the work of Kelly is going to be instrumental for the support of the Unfortunate Fighting Hunger to get our administration to be supportive of the involvement of the student. Imagine doing something similar on campus, where we can have the students and other members of our community talk about how getting connected with services on their campus can make a difference in their lives.
On our research page, you'll also find work by Dr. Moya and crew on the existence of hunger, food insecurity, and homelessness on campus. And it's eye-opening, and I encourage you to take a look at that research and kind of roll it around in your head. These are university students, and if you're hungry, you don't study very well. I mean, this is bottom line impacts of hunger. So, Dr. Moya, thank you for that incredible research. You guys are doing great stuff.
Yeah, there's often this kind of a stereotype of who's food insecure, or who's housing insecure, but it really permeates, so many people in so many households. If you're curious who Eileen is, that's my mom. Zooming in from Ellensburg, Washington. Any other questions or comments?
This is great.
Hmm?
This is great.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Dr. Melanie Rosa, on this research. And my apologies for needing to be late. I was I teach classes on Tuesday afternoons, but I wanted to learn more about what you think are the driving forces and why Fresh Start has been so impactful and so positive on our participants.
Rosa, do you want to say something?
Of course. While talking to the participants during the 21 interviews, they really will not stop talking about the staff and all they bring to the table, how supportive they are, how helpful. They become another support system for them. They might have a family member, a sibling, or anything else, but some of them don't have anybody else around them or a near distance. And that staff became the person that they call to help them accountable for things that they need to achieve. They became sometimes their own, and they talk very highly about the staff. I think that's one of the things that I personally can remember, that it has helped a lot of them to maintain those success after finishing the Fresh Start program.
Yeah, I think people just felt valued here. And I think also getting the assistance that they needed. They were able to identify what they needed to work on, take the steps towards those goals and achieve successes. And that's a motivation for people, But it's definitely the culture of the Fresh Start program and the Kelly Center. And if you spend any time in this building during business hours, you see it, and you feel like there aren't a lot of agencies that have this kind of caring culture.
A shout out to Brenda up there, Brenda Fresh Start. She's a little bit under the weather. She's home today. Brenda's been the glue that has held the program together. She started out as a member of Fresh Start, and we hired her to take on assistant work, and she has over the years been a constant for a lot of our clients. And I think she exemplifies that kind of empathy and persistence that it takes to make this work. Was your first intern Melissa? Melissa's on our advisory board too, so we miss her. A shameless plug for Katie's book. It's called Reinventing Food Banks and Pantries. A lot of it is based on the research done at Fresh Start here over a couple of years. She's got 2 studies out on basically the Fresh Start concept, if I'm saying that correctly, Katie. They're both out on our website. Please take a moment to go and take a look. The second one, I think in particular, has wonderful verbiage on what we do, why we do it, how we do it, and the impact that it has on communities. And I appreciate that, Katie, because I've been stealing that language for proposals for a long time. So
That's the whole point. Don't reinvent the wheel.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just happy to share with you guys that there are other food pantries around the country who've been inspired by you. They read about you in my book, and folks are hearing about this. And so there are more Fresh Start type of programs that are popping up around the country, and hopefully we'll have new data to share on that sooner rather than later.
Thank you. So don't forget, Fresh Start relieves stress. So take this to remind you out there that if you can relieve stress, you can enable people to accomplish so much more than they can accomplish while they're stressed. So that's the bottom line.
Jason, this is Jerry. One of the things that we noticed early on was the increase in confidence that the clients and members gain from achieving the initial goals. And that increase in confidence was the most gratifying thing for those of us involved in the very beginning. You would see someone come into the program who didn't want to make eye contact, had problems even walking in the front door. And after they achieved sometimes just a small first step, and they realized they could do something on their own. And one of the key things is that you don't try to tell them what their goals are. You let them identify them, and then you help them achieve something, and they realize they can do something. And that starts them on their path. And that, from my perspective, is one of the most gratifying and rewarding events from being a host. But you see them starting to change their lives. And that's what was very, very, very pleasing to me, at least.
Thanks, Jerry. I don't even know what time it is. Well, it's 5:29, so anything else before we wrap up? Look at that. Perfect time. I want to thank you all again for coming to the presentation and helping us. Hopefully you can help us get this information out to the community. If you want to take a few flyers, like a handful of flyers, we printed several hundred copies. And we can always print more, but just getting the word out and getting people to be aware of the program. And then hopefully we can spread the program.